From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a show about Star Wars pop culture and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I still think am Ken Napzok.
As far as we know, we are the identities we believe ourselves to be. I did, in honor of the late, great Donald Sutherland, watch the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the ones from the 70s. So I believe I am not a pod person. I think I would know. Do you feel like you're a pod person, Ken?
I feel I'm surrounded by pod people, or maybe I am the pod person, or maybe I'd like to be one to just get on out of here sometimes.
Yeah, man, I would just like to be an unfeeling vegetable person. Why not? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't
sure.
that be nice?
Sure.
Anyway, we're not here to talk about vegetable people, but they might come up. You never know. We are here to talk about Star Wars news, breaking news from a long time ago, and there was a great little interview with Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy about the new Jedi Order film. So we're going to have some fun diving into that, as well as taking a question from one of our great patrons on Patreon. But as always, we want to let you know that today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/forcecenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week, we're recommending a different High Republic book. I've been recommending a couple of the different High Republic books because they do relate to the television sensation, The Acolyte. But this week, we're recommending The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. It is the first book in the whole High Republic adventure. And for us around here who like stories that are critical of the Jedi, but also like stories that show them as the heroes they can be at their height, The Light of the Jedi, I think, is like, this is what's happening when the Jedi are firing on all cylinders. I know it's one of your favorites, Ken. What's your thought?
It's still, I think, my favorite Star Wars book in this modern era. And that's saying a lot because I just absolutely love a ton of the books out there. Princess Leia of Alderaan comes to mind. We've got a lot around that era. Man, this book is great. It reads like a movie, and that is a good thing.
So if you want to experience The Light of the Jedi, you can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/forcecenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/forcecenter for your free audiobook. We move on from the A's of Audible to the A's of Asks. Ken, we got an ask.
That's right. We have got a couple things to update you on the YouTube side. Thanks to those who have joined the party, if you want to call us a party on YouTube. We crossed 9,000 subs and now on to our next goal, 10,000 subscriptions on YouTube. We've been around for 10 years, but we're just putting our backs into this YouTube thing. We hear it's going places, but it's been a lot of fun, a lot of new friends popping on board, a lot of new, maybe even enemies, but that's part of the ride. And it's been fun. And actually, I will say, as our numbers grow, we're covering a popular show like The Acolyte. You're going to have people with different opinions. That's always welcome. What's not welcome is maybe some of the more aggressive approaches. But our chats are real wonderful, just like they are in our Discord through our Patreon page. But anyways, if you want to help us reach our next goal, subscribe over on YouTube. We also want to let you know of 2 live streams coming your way here at the end of June. This Friday, June 28th, 2 p.m. Pacific, we'll be doing a Q&A, just kind of a general one, hanging out, talking with all of you. We'll be doing that as our June live stream. And then in July, on July 12th, get ready for a How Will the Acolyte End show, Friday, July 12th. 2 p.m. Pacific as well. So that is the asks and the updates on the YouTube side.
Yeah. So, like Ken said, thank you for everybody who's been joining us on YouTube. The comments that are just angry with no point of view and hateful are actually very minimal for YouTube's reputation. So they're there, they get removed. And thank you to everyone who's having fun discussing the show in our YouTube. And just to keep track of our numbers, we're at 9,100 now, Ken. So we have pushed past our 9,000 goal. We have our quixotic goal to reach 10,000 by the time the Acolyte wraps, which we probably won't make, but in the striving, we will get very far. And I've seen some kind people on social media going, hey, they're trying to get to 10,000. So thank you, everyone who's helped with that. We move on to our final A. Oh, the final A. Star Wars and life adventures. Ken, what were your Star Wars or life adventures this week?
Not a ton in terms. It was a busy work week, right? So that's a certain kind of adventure, and that's fine. And it's still kind of House of the Dragon season in my house, enjoying the second season a lot with some just earth-shattering acting performances. Some of the best acting I've ever seen. It's amazing what's that cast is doing collectively now. So that's been a ton of fun to just enjoy that. But in the middle of all that, doing a lot of work last week. You know what I did and haven't done in a while? I just put on Solo, a Star Wars story, and just kind of wanted to feel the vibes last week in the Star Wars fandom. A lot of tensions in a lot of different ways. Don't even need to get into it. It was exhausting in its own special way, as it often is. So, every once in a while, you need to remind yourselves what you're here for, which is these fun stories, these adventures, these things that move you, and at times groove you, like the Solo movie, man, just grooving along. Love that, put that on, and it was a lot of fun just to sit back and enjoy Star Wars.
Yeah. Were you working out? Were you doing some work? And Solo was your
Oh,
background fun?
yeah, background fun. It was all work last week, typing up some stuff on, secret CIA projects that turned out to be very real, not conspiracies, very real. And so just was doing that work and watching Solo in the background.
And just to clarify, you said CIA, right? Not CAA, the talent
Oh,
agency.
CIA, yeah, CIA.
Okay.
But I'm sure CIA has done some stuff too.
Because I was like, if Ken is writing about CAA conspiracies, this is going to break Hollywood wide open.
They may have funded some stay behind armies in Italy. I don't know.
Yeah, CAA, they took a run at Castro too. Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, we're in a similar place. A lot of work. I'm very tired, so if I forget a word, I apologize. But a lot of good work. I'm continuing to work on trying to get this feature film made, and it is just a lot of work. No one who has ever made a film, except for extremely rich producers, are lazy because it's a lot of work. The results might not be great.
Yeah.
But people working on films, they're not lazy. Again, with the exception of maybe like just an incredibly rich person who's like, here's some money. Besides that, it's work.
Can I come to set? Can I visit? I want to be on set.
Yeah, exactly. So, just the last couple of weeks, my wife and I have been carving out Saturday afternoon to do some fun things. And I got to do a really great, fun Star Wars adventure this week. The Academy Museum here in Los Angeles, which I think is a great museum on multiple levels, literally, physically, and also, metaphorically. It's great on many levels. But they have a limited time display of the original Dykstra Flex camera that was invented for the first Star Wars film. It's right there, right off the lobby. First thing when you go in, you can actually kind of see it a little bit from the lobby itself. Got a great modern interview with John Dykstra explaining the camera, talking about it being it having his name, but being the product of a hive mind of people. And one of my favorite things about the display was they included around the corner, so you could maybe miss it if you weren't looking. There isn't a ton in the exhibit. It's the camera itself, which is fascinating, and then some recent models from like 2019, 2024 of a Falcon and an X-wing. They have the actual computer they used for Close Encounters, which is just like fridge shaped thing, literally called an ice box with the data tapes, like the actual tapes. It's all amazing stuff. But around the corner on a pillar, they have this little Mecha Godzilla toy from the 70s. And you're like, what's this doing here? And maybe other people know this Star Wars lore. It's a bit of Star Wars lore that I never encountered. They explained that everybody working on the film in ILM, early ILM there, those hippies who loved nerd crap and were like, let's make some fresh nerd stuff with Star Wars. They were all big fans of genre. So they had this little Mecha Godzilla toy as kind of a mascot, and it would ride on top of the Dykstra Flex camera while they were shooting Star Wars. So everything about this display was just like this great, especially if people watch recent ILM documentaries, they know the stories, right, of the invention of this camera and the technical stuff and all that, and the back and forth with Lucas being happy with it and fallout with Dykstra and all that stuff. But just to see it and see that it's both like this technological innovation that's all about precision, but it's all about precision in pursuit of a sense of dynamic movement and a sense of play. And it's so beautiful because to me, that's what creativity is about. It's this precision and play at the same time. And this was just like a tribute, not only to Star Wars, but to, I think, what's kind of beautiful about filmmaking.
Well said, man. That sounds wonderful. I don't know. I don't know if I just want to go experience it. I think I might want to have you there to experience it with me, to take me through all that. That's it's what it's. Yeah, having just rewatched that Light and Magic doc, it's going to be one of those docs that I think I just rewatch at least the first couple parts to focus on the early days because it's just fascinating to what and what you're talking about. That hive mind, everyone working. Yeah, a little unruly. Yeah, the hippies in Van Nuys causing some problems. The clubhouse atmosphere, got it. But it's just fascinating, the stories of all the different minds that showed up to create this thing we love.
Yeah, sense of fun and can do, and a swimming pool outside. Hey, the valley gets real hot, so you can't blame the hippies for that.
Right now, I am wanting one of those ILM pools. It's the first official real hot days of this summer. So,
Yeah, absolutely it is. Yesterday, well, I was baking. Anyway, let's get away from the heat and into the cool of the new Jedi Order. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy, the director attached to this upcoming Star Wars film, talked briefly and cryptically about the new Jedi Order film while appearing on a show called Stars Sirius XM. The director was asked about the film and working on Star Wars in general. She only spoke about Star Wars for under 2 minutes, but I think we're going to talk about those 2 minutes for longer than that. Any general thoughts before I get into this first quote, Ken?
No, excited to do this. I stumbled on this on social media. It just popped up, and yeah, I love that a minute and a half, 2 minutes can become an entire episode because I think it's the comments are rich. So let's dive in.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, this is the sort of like, ooh, let's interpret what that might mean and have fun speculating, because this isn't like casting news and release dates. This isn't concrete. This is about where we are in the progress of this film. I pulled these quotes from Star Wars Newsnet that always does a great job of writing out the quotes. So here is the first one. This is what Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy had to say. Sometimes you walk in the footsteps of people and giants who created worlds. And in the case of Star Wars, George Lucas's world and the filmmakers who have walked in his footsteps have set this world that they want young viewers to walk into and have an understanding of the world. And at the heart of it, for me, is Rey Skywalker, is Daisy Ridley and her story, and taking her on an adventure to a Jedi Academy and creating a world that is a natural dovetail to the story we've seen her go through the last 3 episodes, and working with Lucasfilm and Kathleen Kennedy and the team over there in breathing life into characters everyone loves and has fallen in love with, and finding new characters that the next generation of moviegoers will fall in love with. So a lot to talk about in that quote, but I want to start with just kind of a big picture reset. We haven't had a chance to talk about this film in a while, and we are lucky to have some new viewers, new listeners. So Ken, what are your general thoughts on the new Jedi Order film? Why are you excited about it?
This remains the film I am most excited for what's coming. I'm curious about Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm sure Dave's going to cook up something big and grand and thrawny with his. And then, as a fan of a lot of Mangold's films, someone who loves Dial of Destiny, excited about his. I still fear we're so far off, I don't know if it'll happen. But that's not anything with Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Disney, Mangold. It's just the calendar is daunting. But this film still gets me just thrilled, gets those Star Wars nerd chills because I love this idea. We'll talk about some of the details. I love the idea of going forward. And I absolutely adore the character of Rey. Quickly became one of my favorites. From her early introduction, that Force Awakens introduction, still one of my favorite sequences in Star Wars. I saw it posted about a little bit this week. Amongst all the noise of Star Wars fandom, which, like I said, is exhausting, there's these brilliant little gems where someone's like celebrating the thing you love, which is Rey's introduction, the music, John Williams saying, "Yep, I'm coming back for this character," and her on Jakku is still one of my favorites. And just to be able to see more of that character, and Jedi Academy, we'll pick up that little clue she dropped. I don't know, man. I just I know a lot of people calling this episode 10. I don't think that's necessarily correct. I don't need it to be correct. I don't even need a number in front of it. I'm just happy to go forward with this character.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really love the character of Rey. I think she started so strong in The Force Awakens. Just the relatable but different sort of melancholy.
Mm-hmm.
That music as she's sliding down
So good.
that sand dune, it just beautiful. And then the character gets taken to great complex places in the Last Jedi, and goes through, I think, a brilliant hell of
Mm-hmm.
identity and fear in Rise of Skywalker, to come out with this. Well, the road is challenging ahead, but I believe in the Jedi. I believe in myself, and I need to walk forward. So, love the character of Rey. Love those final scenes in the Rise of Skywalker with her igniting that blade that is both a connection to the past and a tribute to her own identity and her own past. All sorts of great stuff about Rey, but it's also just exciting for me because maybe it'll slide into being episode 10. But as it's being described right
Yeah.
now, I'm excited about it because it isn't episode 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you look at the three trilogies of the Skywalker saga, they are ensemble casts with different amount of complete story arcs given to different characters. But there's a lead of the ensemble in each of them. It's Luke and Anakin and Rey, and all three of those trilogies are coming of age stories of here is how our hero became the person that they are. Here's Luke, how he became a Jedi. Here's how Anakin fell to the dark side, and here's how Rey became a Jedi in a New Hope for the galaxy. And to me, it's a different film to then say we're going to have a film that might be an ensemble cast, but it's not continuing the story of everybody in that saga. It's not continuing the story of that saga or that war, that conflict. It's taking this character who had a coming of age story and now spending some time with them in the prime of their life. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like this film is like, what if we did get a film in, uh, 92
Mm-hmm.
that was Luke in the
Mm-hmm.
Jedi Order? Maybe Leia's in it, maybe Han's in it, but it's Luke and his new Jedi Order. What if we had got a film in 2012
Mm-hmm.
that was Vader leads the Inquisitors? That's not a continuation of, the prequel era. So that's what I'm really excited about. We've got a lot of great storytelling in comics and publishing, and now in television with continuing Luke and Anakin's story. It's exciting to me to have a whole Star Wars film that is about the lead of the sequel trilogy in the prime of their life, going through the challenges of
Mm-hmm.
your 30s, your 40s,
Mm-hmm.
of I'm an adult now, I've fully come of age, and now here are the challenges of just being an adult and
Yeah.
taking responsibility for myself and for all these other people around me.
Mm-hmm.
That's an exciting and different story to me.
Absolutely is. You're talking about that 1992 year, right? Like that's a great example because think of where you were in 83 and where you were in 92 and what seemed like decades of life in between, even though time and I. So 2015 to wherever this film comes out, that is you're taking someone who was introduced to this character then who might be younger, and you get to spend time with the character in an age close to where you are. And yeah, we have these big conversations all the time. Star Wars being for 12-year-olds, blah blah blah. Yeah, that George is right, but it's about that cusp of adulthood thing, and that feeling never leaves you. And so to be able to explore it right now with Rey in that period is what's also exciting for me.
Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely the character of Rey and where she is in her life. And the other huge thing for me, which we've talked about before, so I'll keep it quick, is just I'm really excited about this story of the Jedi. I think
Mm-hmm.
from other things that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy has said, the way that she has described the film, I think this is going to be a story where the Jedi are going to have flaws and stumbles because every protagonist does and should,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but that they are going to be heroes, defenders of peace and justice. And what Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy said, I'm paraphrasing, when the film was announced, is this new generation of guardians of peace and justice is rising, and there are a lot of people in the galaxy who don't want that. So a
Mm-hmm.
story of maybe there's been a little bit of chaos in the galaxy for 15 years, and all sorts of institutions have risen up, of criminal institutions, financial institutions, maybe some smaller governments, maybe the Outer Rim's doing its own thing, and all of them are like, oh, no, 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 no. We don't want a bunch of pure hearted champions
Mm-hmm.
of the little people running around and protecting people. We don't want someone with a laser sword coming in here and breaking up our, criminal sweatshop.
Mm-hmm.
That's a entire reframing of the Jedi that we've had, where they in High Republic era and prequel era, where they are the institution. Instead, it sounds like they're going to be the new kids on the block, disrupting the institutions that are causing harm, and that's a fascinating approach to me.
Absolutely, that's kind of another. Yeah, there's so many layers to why I'm excited, but that this post-victory era, and to get to explore it in almost real time, where one thing that Episode 7 had to, not I want to say against it, but had to overcome was this 30 years of history that we had to fill into the story, and this post Ewok celebration. And that, I know that's felt a little bizarre to some folks, or some folks who just feel, I understand it from a certain point of view, that the story ended on Endor, like that. We don't need anything more, but here we are. We get something more. We get to explore that, and now we get to do it in almost real time.
Yeah, almost real. Yeah. That's a harsh prediction for when this film is going to come out, but you might be right. Yeah. Anyway, so the way that Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy talks about Rey makes me feel like the film is centered on her, as opposed to having her in an Obi-Wan like role in A New Hope. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like is this going to be an ensemble, but Rey is the lead, or do you feel like maybe the movie comes out and the new big three of her Jedi students are the main character, and she's in the background a little bit more?
I like the idea of Rey being centered in this for a lot of the reasons we've talked about. You getting to grow with this character, to see this character on display in most of the film, dealing with different things at a different point in her life, and that how that would mean to the characters, again, who fell in love with her early on when they were younger. Well, for us, it will be considered younger too. 2015 is a long time ago. But that doesn't mean we're going to talk about the new without a doubt, but it doesn't mean that she's not going to be the center of other people who she knows will be the center of the galaxy. And maybe we get to see that through her eyes about how that transition works again, I say real time, but on a more of a minute by minute basis versus, hey, 30 years have passed, Luke's on a hill. We meet this old guy Obi-Wan in a desert. We've already kind of there, with that kind of stuff. But now we get to see someone who is at the lead, who is the lead, going, hey, I got to make sure I pass this on. I think seeing her wrestle with, in both good and bad ways, about how to move the order forward, or just essentially create it new, is very interesting, with all the conversations even around the Jedi Order as we look to the past for shows like The Acolyte or The High Republic. Some of the discussions around the Jedi can frustrate me personally, because I think you might lose the big picture of who the Jedi are, but it doesn't mean some of the questions that are asked couldn't be valuable. Does Rey, with all those books that she studied and had, and all the knowledge she pulled from them, and starts to put them into practice, what does that actually mean? So I think she needs to be centered for all of that, while everyone else around is going to be important for the future.
Yeah, no, I really agree. I think I hope that Rey is the main character, and it's still an ensemble,
Totally.
but and those characters can have arcs and meaning and all that, but that she is the clear lead. And I think she's got fascinating things to go through. The challenge of defining the Jedi for a new era, and being, very studied with those old books of what the Jedi Order was, and then going, the experience I had, the training I had was, my masters, Luke and Leia, going, let's boil this down to the essential. What does a Jedi do? A Jedi is about facing their own fear and being there for other people. A Jedi is about, defending people, but also connecting to people and getting strength through your own strength, but also strength through connection. I think that's so much about why Rey is wanting to connect to the Jedi that have come before, and not see herself as this lone figure, but as this embodiment of an idea and a goal that has been in existence for centuries, wanting to move that forward. I think there's some great both drama and comedy in the experience that I think most of us have as we get older, of when we're the child, when we're the student, we get what the mentor is upset about or the parent is upset about on paper, and then it's different to experience it. So Rey starting this order going, now I really personally deeply understand the burden Luke felt
Yeah.
of being looked up to, because maybe she's a
Mm-hmm.
legend by now,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, kids are flocking to learn from the great
Mm.
Jedi Master, Rey Skywalker, whose exploits are celebrated across the galaxy. And now she knows the burden that Luke went through
Mm.
of feeling mythic and not wanting to fail people. I think all that's is fascinating storytelling possibility flowing off of what existed in the sequel trilogy, like the director's talking about.
I love what you're kind of hitting at part of what her story could be, which is I don't personally take it as this Jedi Academy, as is mentioned here, is started right away. Picking up where we walk, towards the end of Rise of Skywalker, where we walk on from, is her on this kind of emotional tour and
Mm-hmm.
putting some things forward, lighting the blade, the yellow blade, and going forward. And in a time where the galaxy is trying to reset itself, and some of the stuff you talked about earlier, whether it be criminals, smugglers, politicians, financial institutions, the banking clan is back. Who knows? She's going to be involved in some way in that, and to be able to draw upon that as she then says, "Hey, it's time." And with Finn being a student, we'll talk about the Finn of it all, I'm sure. But
Mm-hmm.
and then going, hey, now it's time to do this, and to have people, possibly waiting at the door to be Jedi, or people who still aren't sure if this is a thing that should happen or how it should happen, and maybe she has to convince people of that. Maybe it's the great "Would you join my school" campaign that we need
Mm-hmm.
you, the galaxy needs you.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you
and I
want to
mean
walk in.
the all of the, like, how does she set it up? How, whatever her
Mm-hmm.
rules about attachment, what level of
Right.
relationship do they have to the government? All that stuff is fascinating too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
in this quote, Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy also does celebrate exactly what you were talking about, of the idea of their new characters as well. So what kind of new characters do you hope to see 15 years after this fast and horrific First Order war?
Mm.
Who would want to be a Jedi? Who would either be like
Yep.
seeking her out
Yeah.
or answering her flyers? Are people,
Yeah.
like you're saying, are they beating down her door, or is she having to go door to door?
Yeah. Pulling those little tabs on the telephone poles. Want to be a Jedi? Call Ray. Yeah, I think it. I think you could have those who directly benefited from any kind of help, those whose families benefited from the stand that the entire galaxy took with Ray
Hmm.
at the center of that. That would be an easy sell. But again, we have the myth of Luke Skywalker hanging over a lot of this. I think those stories are still being told. I think you have now the stories of Rey, and perhaps some even mentioned of Ben. Who knows? But I could also see right away you're getting characters that are coming in to pervert that story. Characters who are coming in to grasp their own power. So muddying the waters. And again, a lot of these questions that are being asked in the fandom. Should Jedi, is the attachment thing is weird. Do they take kids? I personally don't think they do, but as we're seeing in Acolyte, it's complicated at times. It has been, and I understand that part of the conversation too. So if you have a lot of the galaxy going, whoa, 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 we felt the second act of Last Jedi was correct and the Jedi need to go. We didn't watch the third act. We're sitting here in the second act in the galaxy. Those kind of newer characters would be fascinating for me to see.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think because of some of the discussion of the Jedi right now, that's it's real real policy and rule based. A lot of the fandom
Uh-huh.
discussion, and I think some of that is flowing
Yeah.
from the great storytelling in Acolyte that is tied up in kind of some of their rules in the way
Mm-hmm.
they're administering them, and the way they are feeling like an institution with rules who are going around enforcing them. But there's also just so much more that sort of the mythic, the philosophical, the spiritual about the
Yeah.
Jedi to focus on. And I feel like that's what Rise of Skywalker really successfully celebrated to me. Like, let's just get back to what are we doing? We are making sacrifices of ourselves, facing our own fears so that we can be there for others and defend others against darkness. Literally step between
Mm.
the lightning of hate and the rest of the galaxy. So I'm interested to see if the film is a little bit more focused on those issues of, like, what's happening to the Tamiri Blag, the broom kid
Mm-hmm.
of The Last Jedi, who I think the story of Star Wars has always been to me that, people can be critical of it, of being dynastic, because it's the Skywalker saga and we're talking about them.
Sure.
And the revelation that Rey was connected to Palpatine, and people don't like sometimes that it's dynastic. But I feel like the canon of Star Wars has always been all across the galaxy, all the time, powerful Force users are being born.
Mm-hmm.
And, Luke hasn't had his school going for years. Rey hasn't had her school going for years. And there are young Force users like Tamiri Bleg popping off going, I have this gift. Something, to quote Rey, something awakened in me. I don't know what it is, and I don't know what to do with it. How many kids are going through exactly what Rey went through and are like, oh, Lord, I want to go to this special school where they understand me, where I'm not a freak, where I'm not a danger. I'm really interested in the students who are like that, of like exactly what Soul described his experience in that recent episode of The Acolyte, of being found by the Jedi was relief. It was family. It was finally, I'm not different. Finally, I'm understood. So there's that element. There is the mythic element of the sequel trilogy of people being inspired by Luke, Rey, the heroes of the Resistance. And I can see there being like, young Jedi recruits who are just like, I can't wait to be a hero like my heroes. And then maybe even like some young kind of idealistic, angry people who are a little too ready to get that laser sword swinging.
Oh, absolutely. A little vengeance first on the docket. Yeah.
Yep.
Coming in here going, I'd like some superpowers. What for? Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Some people wronged my family. Like, you're right, they did. What do you want to do about that? Yeah. Yeah. I'm really fascinated by all the different kind of perspectives that students could have, and how it could build on, like she said, the world building in the sequels.
Indeed.
She also mentions multiple characters that everyone loves and has fallen in love with. I think classic characters are going to continue to be a big part of the conversation in the fandom. Who do you want around? Obviously, Finn, being a Force user, is a big candidate, and there's been lots of hope and speculation. We got Rose Tico, Chewie, Maz Kanata, BB-8. And there's a small, non-comprehensive list. Not Snap Wexley. That's about it. Besides that,
Rest in peace now. Yeah.
Do you want a lot of classic characters, or do you want a larger focus on the new?
I want a larger focus on the new, but it would just seem, weird, sad. It might be sad if you don't see BB-8 or Chewie. An elder statesman that Chewie is. Maybe he finally goes home to rest. I don't know, something like that. And I think you need it, and I trust they would do it in the right kind of way, where it isn't just a roll call of faces. We talk about Finn in a second. Rose is an interesting character. Poe, is an interesting character in the sense of, I think they'd be leaders. I think they'd be politicians. I think Rose would be a senator. I think Rose would be in some sort of an important position of government, using her skills to help people. That Poe would go on to be a leader. That's in character, kind of wondering what could be there, and I love all that. BB-8's the only given to me. It's also the easiest. I don't think BB-8 is going to have a contract dispute or not be sure if he wants to come back and work for Disney. Boyega. Boyega's the big question we get to. I think also just as big as Oscar Isaac. I think him coming back to Moon Knight was actually pretty shocking to those close to him working with Disney again. He had some, pretty vocal complaints as well. I think that gets lost in the conversation. But I think it character-wise makes sense to have them around.
Yeah. I think, it's a big, complicated stew for me, because I do want new characters and I want to focus on a new, and there's a part of me that feels like if we were mostly focusing on new characters, maybe one or two characters around, or one or two characters are clearly acknowledged. So, hey, we don't see Poe and Zori, but we know they're leading the New Republic Defense Forces. So maybe if we get little dollops of answers, like all that stuff makes sense, but I kind of hope that there will be a focus on the new to kind of avoid obsessing on all those details of a roll call of, it's 15 years later, and like, sometimes like a movie ends and there's the at the credits there's like, and this person became a banker and these two people got married and this person tragically died. Like, I don't want the film
Always
to begin with like, the high school reunion 15 years later. Where are they now? Do you know what I mean? It's natural for us to have those questions, but I think a part of what's great about this film is that it's opening the door of a new era.
Yeah.
And how many of those stories can be told other places. I think, a couple that come to my mind, I think BB-8 would be great. BB-8 would be fabulous, but I know there's already going to be the angry videos of Rey stole Poe's droid. So we need the flashback where Poe literally signs the paper. You own BB-8. Nobody owns BB-8. BB-8 chose. Anyway, there's that. I'd love to see Chewie, but look, that Wookiee needs to spend some time with his wife. I hope he's been home with Mala and his grown ass child for a little while here. That would be great.
But maybe he's the senator from Kashyyyk. Maybe he moves into politics, local government. But so he's on the new center of the Republic, but he has to spend most of the time on Kashyyyk.
Yeah. That'd be great. And then I think like Finn is the biggest one for me, but I would put Rose in the same category where I would love to have them in the film. I would love to even have them name dropped. But because conversations around both of them have been around the characters being underutilized, Rose not having as prominent of a role in Rise of Skywalker, John Boyega being public about feeling like he was set up as one of the main characters in The Force Awakens, then feeling like his character was sidelined a little bit. If Finn is in this movie in particular, I feel like he needs to have a big, solid, fleshed out arc. And there's that question to me of like, is there room in the film for that? Because I feel like it's pretty necessary, unless it's already banked that, he's gonna have his own solo film coming up. So I think it's a complex issue, and I think it's one that needs sensitivity, not just to the storytelling and the world building, but to some of the real world dynamics that have been around the sequel trilogy.
I like your big point of, if the character is there, you kind of need him to be there with a capital T, like around part of the story. Because I even see Finn, if at this point in the story, Rey's like, cool, I'm going to go get a school established. He might be the Jedi that's out and about, going, cool. All right, I'll come back. I'll teach class on the weekends, special courses, but I'm a Jedi in the field. And that could mean, he's not as part of the story. And I think I'm picking up on what you're saying too. It almost feels like this is Rey and New Jedi, and that not that there isn't a place for Finn, Rose, Poe, BB-8, all these characters, but that it just feels like it's centered on her, and that might accidentally, once again, sideline some of the characters in the eyes of many, including an actor like John Boyega. I do trust him that if he, whatever he was at this point, decides to come back to do, if that's the case, and I personally hope at some point he does, because I think he was a great value to the Star Wars story, both in and outside the films, that I would trust that he was at this point happy with it. You know what I mean? Like at this point, the ball's in his court in a good way. Like, all right, I've spoken with Daisy, we've hung out, I've met with people, I'm going to do this, and whatever I do is something I am happy with. I would trust him in that regard. But just in terms of the character, I really agree with you. Like, if he's going to be back, have him be back.
He's got to be back. Yeah, and I agree with you too. Of like, my personal ideal is, there's a role for Finn that John Boyega is excited about, and it works for him, and he puts his whole back behind it, and then I get to just sit back and enjoy Finn, who I would really like to see come back.
I agree with that.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back to talk about the second part of Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's quote back in a moment. And we have returned, just like the Jedi keep doing. You can't keep them Jedi down. Here is the second half of this short 90-second quote. Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy said, I've had conversations with J.J. Abrams. I've had conversations with George Lucas. And then, of course, Dave Filoni, who's a big part of the Star Wars universe now. We speak very often, and Kathy Kennedy and Carrie Beck and Simon Emanuel. I mean, I think the team is really taking time to make sure that we do justice to telling the story of Rey. And, I think that she stands for something. We've seen this wonderful journey that she went on in episode 7, 8, and 9. And now it's like on to the next adventure. And how do we create a world in the adventure that we take her on. Again, lots of fun stuff in that quote, but I want to focus mostly on this ongoing conversations. How do you feel about the list of names that she's chatted with? It seems like most creators have a chat with George specifically. So obviously he remains invested, or at least open to, come on by, give me a call, and I'll tell you things about the Force.
Love this list of names. None of it surprising. I'll say slightly the J.J. Abrams thing surprising for no reason, for no gossipy, salacious reason. Just you don't hear that as much anymore. You know, George, we know pops around or has a conversation. I'm fascinated. I'd love to see that in real life. Is it a text from Kathleen Kennedy going, George, can I get you for 5 on Wednesday? Or is it, how active of an interest? Because he's obviously got a lot going on. Life, health, awards, speeches, museums.
Yep.
But the fact that he still has, any time for it. I mean, any time for it. Is pretty exciting to me as a fan, and I think of that director in the Jedi doc where Ryan's being filmed and George is on the phone like, oh, okay, seemed very organic, very real, very like George saying, I'm happy to talk about this stuff. I love talking about fast cars and food court food, but man, yeah, you want to talk about the Force, you want to talk about the Jedi and what they're supposed to be doing and maybe where they falter and what can be done about it. I'm happy to talk to you about it. I don't know to the extent, but I'm excited about all those names. Especially George.
Yeah, fast cars and noble Jedi. That's what George Lucas likes to talk about, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fascinating because it really could be like, we got another director, give him the talk. And he says what his thoughts about the Jedi, about the Force, maybe even stuff that he's said a lot in public. And we all know, maybe every new director calls up George and he just tells him why the D Squad is the best part of the Clone Wars. You never know with the Rebel in flannel, right? But
yeah.
But I'd like to think that they are more in-depth conversations about the specific project. And it's exciting to me, the idea that even though, he publicly had his ups and downs with the sequel trilogy, and I think has spoken very honestly of like, it was hard to let go. I love the idea that like, well, now that the story is the story and this, young future Jedi that I envisioned in my treatments.
Yeah.
Now that her story is established and she's going on, here's what I feel about the character. Here's what I think about the character is great. And perhaps most exciting to me about if this is, the new Jedi Order film, getting a chance to ask Lucas of like, okay, in your mind, what are they supposed to be when, how does the Jedi Order look when it's working? Who would oppose the Jedi Order when it's working the way it's supposed to? And when they are truly guardians of peace and justice and beloved by the little people who they defend, by the common people who they defend. I would love to hear his thoughts on a fully functional Jedi Order.
Yeah, it'd be really deep and insightful, involve, midichlorians or the micro level. But I also have this comic sketch version of George just going, it should be Darth Talon. He just keeps answering Darth Talon over and over.
Darth Talon. He hangs up.
Okay, thanks, George. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done.
The J.J. Abrams thing, I guess surprised isn't right. I'm thrilled. I know people have very strong opinions about the person and about his work. He's I think one of the most successful people who has also been just pretty roundly criticized. You say his name and I think if you put J.J. Abrams into an AI, you'll just get lens flare mystery boxes, the next words that automatically pop up, right? That's the level of consternation that some people have about this person. Good, bad, or otherwise, whether you like this sequel trilogy or not, I think he did a great job with Force Awakens. I personally think, I understand a lot of the criticisms of Rise of Skywalker and can even kind of agree with them of like, yep, maybe that should have been done differently. I definitely agree with that. But I think where it matters, he got down to the soul of it. He got down to the soul of the character of Rey and set up who she was and what she wanted and needed in The Force Awakens. And then I think that was developed very well on an emotional level in The Last Jedi. and then he picked up the baton. And if you take away the distraction of what's the answer to her identity and just
Mm-hmm.
go, who is this character? What does she want? She
Mm-hmm.
is a naturally kind person who experienced great trauma and has natural inclinations towards pain and lashing out because of the trauma of her
Mm-hmm.
childhood, of her abandonment. She is somebody who deeply wants connection. When she has connection, she doesn't want to fail the people that she's connected to. So she feels the weight of this power and is trying to use it the right way. And all that stuff about the character is so consistent to me throughout the sequel trilogy. And I think Ryan Johnson did a great job with the middle chapter and raising the stakes on
Mm-hmm.
those issues. But J.J. Abrams created those issues,
Mm-hmm.
created that character, beginning and end. So with all
Mm-hmm.
due respect to people who don't like him and who don't like the sequel trilogy or his work in it, I really am happy that he is being given the respect of he co-created this character and brought her into the Star Wars world and put the button on her up to this point in the Star Wars world.
Yeah, I really understand what you're saying there. There's something about that name that just for years has elicited just a checklist of jokes that are hilarious and insightful. You people making them are just, you're on it. You're on it. You really nailed it. And I try to approach the JJ conversation like I think JJ does himself. I'll follow one person on Twitter, maybe, or social media. I think he collectively follows like 3 people. He says, "You don't like what I did? You're right," and just kind of does his work. That's all he
Mm-hmm.
can. I don't know. It's like entering in a conversation about Taylor Swift. Great. You don't like your music. You think this and that. Awesome. Millions like it. Like, what do you want me to tell you here? Like, what do
Mm-hmm.
you want me to do? And yeah, I agree. That I love Rise of Skywalker. It's my favorite of the sequel films to watch, meaning when I just want to sit down and watch 1 or 3 at this point in my Star Wars fandom journey, that's kind of a fun one for me to watch. It's really emotional. I think it brought it home for me in a great way, but imperfect, of course. Yeah. And there's a lot behind that, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. Love it. Fascinating. Great book one day. But we both kind of danced around the word surprising. I just I mean that in the sense of like a cool like, oh, okay, that's good, that's great that he's still going to pick up that phone call or answer a text or whatever, join a Slack conversation. Well, yeah, you want to talk about this and the experience of it, and just even an experienced director like he was at the time in 2015 to enter in that cyclone that's swirling around you of the Star Wars world and bring something back. Because now we're so many years removed from Rise of Skywalker. Yet Mandalorian Grogu might be first. Got it. But you're stepping back in a big way with this character. Yeah, let's talk about it. And let's talk about the core of what we put there, of what that story, that the guy who kind of helped build that scene we talked about in Force Awakens or that sequence has,
Mm-hmm.
that he would have some thoughts on this character makes a lot of sense. And I like that he is generous enough. And I think that's also been behind the scenes part of the reputation you hear about of him being generous with those around him when it comes to creativity. I
Mm-hmm.
think I don't know.
Yeah. Bottom line, I'm thrilled to hear his name dropped because
Yep.
he is vital in the journey of Rey Skywalker up to this point.
Yep.
There's some great talk in this quote about taking time with the film. Does it make you feel like the movie is still a ways out, still in the script development stage? And I want to throw this information I found here, Ken, as well. There was an interview with Daisy Ridley in The Hollywood Reporter for her Young Woman in the Sea film, dated May 28th, where the interviewer said, before we return to talking about this film, Magpie, I have to do that obligatory thing where we ask about that other upcoming Disney movie, Star Wars New Jedi Order. Have you seen words on paper yet? And Daisy Ridley laughs and says, I have not read actual words on actual paper, but a script is soon coming. That was May 28th, about a month ago as we record.
Mm-hmm.
So where are you at with sort of the time part of this film and how much
Mm-hmm.
that's a part of Sharmeen's Obaid-Chinoy's quote?
I'm forgetting where my predictions are these days, right? Where it's like, what is Mandalorian and Grogu's got to be? We were just talking about it too. A couple of
It's currently dated for 2022. 2026.
Right. So yeah, 2027 is the earliest for this. 2028 seems to be more realistic, which is kind of insane in a way when you think about that calendar flipping pages there so fast. But 2027, I'm hopeful about 2027. I really am. And I know some people, well, they got this date, Got it. I understand that. But I'm just talking about in terms of timing. Her talking about it. They've got ideas. They got concept art. It's been in the works for a bit here.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that they're like, the first one back out, again, no Mando and Grogu's coming. First one out with these characters. Let's make sure it's right. And that's not to suggest that the others were rushed, other than I do feel episode 9, because of the director switch, had a little less time to be cooked. I get that. But 2027, I'm going to be hopeful for that December to be seeing this film.
Yeah, I think that that Stephen Knight script might be done. Maybe it's still not quite done. Maybe it's been read by the producers and it's not in Daisy's hands yet as of May 28th, or maybe it's a kickback. I think the taking time part of Sharmeen Obaid-Chinoy's quote just makes me really feel like Mandalorian and Grogu is a smart move, because the first feature film back in the theaters to build on that success and that popularity seems smart to me. But it also buys them time to really not, to still get this out relatively quickly, but to not rush the script in multiple drafts, multiple years of development. But for when it's coming out, if Mandalorian and Grogu sticks to 2026, I'm really hoping 2027. A New Hope is 50 years old, and the Star Wars film that's in theaters is the new Jedi Order. This dream, these guardians of peace and justice that the world first heard about 50 years ago are blazing back on our screen, and they are heroes. They are guardians of peace and justice, with flaws and mistakes and stumbles, because that's the story and that's what all heroes go through. But to take that whiz bang energy of there's hope. It doesn't always have to be a dark time. Someone will pick up this blade, pick up the call to be there for other people, to help people, to defend people. All those core, straightforward ideas of the first Star Wars, to have them celebrated by the Jedi rising once again on the 50th anniversary, I'd be thrilled.
Absolutely. That it seems right.
Yeah.
It seems like the Force planned it. Yeah.
The Force and deadlines. All right, we are gonna move on. Any final questions on this very short interview?
No, I love it. I'm excited. Like I said, I truly am most excited for this film, because I just, despite not knowing anything about Mangold, so I'm like, what could that be? The beginning of the Jedi mean? I don't know, but we can kind of figure that out. Filoni set up his world in a great way, so that we kind of have an idea of who's going to be around. This one is a great, wonderful unknown with a character I love. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, me too. Excited for the continuation of Rey's story and all sorts of new Jedi running around. We're going to wrap up our episode today with a question from our patron on Patreon. This comes to us from Will Culbertson. And Will says, "Hi, ForceCenter team. So I just watched new trailers for both Star Wars Outlaws as well as Indiana Jones and The Great Circle." I didn't know that's what it was called. It makes me feel like he's like in gym class playing with a parachute or something. But I haven't had a chance to watch that one. Anyway, enough commentary from me. Back to Will's question. Will says, "Both look rather excellent, and as a massive fan of both Lucasfilm franchises, I'm looking forward to seeing these stories play out. Just one problem, though. I'm not a gamer. Haven't been since the days of Nintendo 64, and I'm not interested in trying to start up now. The trailers and scenes featured so far look incredibly cinematic, and while I know I can wait for the eventual YouTube playthrough videos, I'd rather ingest the story in a more succinct way. So my question is, why are they not able to release these stories in a way that works for non-gamers as well? Could they not edit the cutscenes together with some gameplay montages to fill in any narrative gaps and release a full movie into cinemas or onto Disney Plus? Or even create physical media for those of us who like to collect? I would happily pay to be able to experience these stories, and I know I'm not the only one. It just seems like they're leaving money on the table. Appreciate any insights as to why they can't or won't pursue this. Thanks." This is a fascinating question to me, because I want to be a gamer, but my time is I have a hard time making time for the games, and also I become obsessed and will disappear for a month and grow a long, scraggly beard and look like one of the fallen Jedi from Jedi
Yeah.
Fallen Order. So, Ken, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I understand it. I understand it. I at this point in time will not be playing the Great Circle because I don't own the correct and right system. So, yeah, I'd love to figure that out. Especially when it comes to like the Star Wars side, these stories matter, right? They're there. They exist. Cal Kestis is there. He's part of the Star Wars story. So you might feel left out. There was that. Was it the VR Vader game a couple years ago?
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to play it. To be honest, I've never fully taken in the story, and it pops up every now and then. You'll get a reference to it because it's very tied to the history of Mustafar, and so like I'll have to do that kind of like, oh yeah, it's that. So I think that's part of what Will is feeling. It's not just being left out; it's just you also don't have all the information you might want as a fan. So I can understand this approach. Yes, I know there's people who will do this on YouTube. They'll cut together the scenes. As far as releasing officially, in a game like Outlaws that's going to be full of choices, it's being sold as open world. Yes, it's going to have a story, a straight through line. You know, I releasing on Disney Plus is kind of interesting and fun to me. Get a Blu-ray of just the story. I don't think it's really ever been done before, but novels have been done before. Now, Will might comment back. I don't read the novels. I don't think that's true, but that's a way. That's a way to do it, to explore it a little bit more, especially with something like Outlaws. You got some Revan comics out there in the past, maybe not canon, of course, but you had those. The Mass Effect novels kind of playing around with the universe, but it's something that might actually be in story, telling it, and not like we had the Sam Mag's book that kind of dealt with the characters between the two Star Wars Jedi games. But to have like, here's Outlaws in comic form or novel form, I think that'd be interesting. I think that'd be fun because I think Will is right. He's far from the only person that just, for many, many reasons, won't be playing these games.
Yeah. I mean, I think I really agree with all that stuff. And I think, we'll probably get many comments to this point, and you acknowledge it, Ken, of like, I do think you can find YouTube videos of the cutscenes edited together, but that sometimes doesn't fill the same narrative gap, and I think it's not the heart of what Will is talking about. I think what Will is talking about is an adaptation from the company, not a fan, a gamer cutting it together, no matter how good of a job they do. In terms of Will's direct question of why they can or won't, I mean, I think there is a window where they want to make money from the video game, right? And they don't want to put out, a story right away. But I think there is this idea of as all these stories expand, this idea of sort of accessibility in the broadest term of there's literal accessibility issues. Like when Star Wars first started to put out some of the audio dramas, there was a lag before they put it out in book form. And that's a direct accessibility issue. And then in the High Republic Phase 2, they did a much better job of a pretty key part of the story that I just read in the script format was an audio, the Battle of Jeddah. And there was much more acknowledgement of, hey, we want everybody on board. We need to make this available in multiple formats. I don't think it's quite the same thing, but I do think it's kind of fascinating that we've got to this point in this world from when we were young and, Pac-Man was a joke thing that kids with beats on their fingers begged their parents to give them a quarter for, to the evolution of the sort of N64 days and around there where you got Roger Ebert out there going, it's not art and it's never going to be, to the point where they're so considered art. They're so considered a valuable part of the storytelling that we need them in multiple formats to be better accessible. I think is cool. And I think there's hope for it. I think we've seen successful video game adaptations like Last of Us and Fallout. I agree with you that I think sometimes there's that hesitation, especially in open world, where the video games are personal and people are making a lot of choices, where you might get that kickback of like, well, that's not the way I played it. That's not the way I took it. I didn't hear any of that about Last of Us or Fallout. And maybe those criticisms are out there. But I feel like with Jedi Fallen Order in particular, because I haven't played the sequel, of like, there's a pretty solid through line there. I'm not going to watch it and go, but I went to Dathomir first,
Right.
before I learned that I didn't know how to jump high enough, and then I went somewhere else and come back. Why didn't they include the scene where I didn't know how to jump high enough yet? Like, I think it's got a pretty clear, pretty important story of Jedi in this era and the choices they make, and it honestly, with some of the holocron business, I don't want to spoil it. It kind of relates to even some of the issues that we're talking about in Acolyte with what is Jedi's responsibility to young Force sensitive people. Like, there's a lot in that story that I would love to see as a professionally cut together cutscenes, or just an animated special, or a live action. Everybody wants Cal Kestis, like, go for it. Let him do it. But I'd also be totally down with novelizations or comic book adaptations. But I think, big picture, I agree that we're in this beautiful era where if the stories are going to matter in the video games, then even if it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, let's eventually make those stories accessible to everyone in really enjoyable formats where the company could make some money. I'm with Will on this one.
Yeah. Let's help them make some money.
Yeah.
No.
Oh no! Now more people are going to call us shills.
Yeah. Oh god. Yeah. I'm with you, Will. I can't wait to play Outlaws. I've been a little dubious about some of the video game stuff in the past and what's coming, but some of the recent footage got me excited. So, Will, maybe you can just come here and I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, Outlaws looks really great, and I can't wait to watch the trailer for The Great Circle.
It looks good too. I'm bummed. I don't exclusive to one platform. I don't know.
For now, right?
For now.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is our look at this great interview, a great chance to reconnect with our excitement for the new Jedi Order. We got years of speculation to come, and a great question from Will. Thank you very much. Ken, you want to let people know where they can find us?
Love to. We're the Force Center Show, and we are on social media at Force Center Pod. Our Facebook page is Force Center Podcast, Instagram and YouTube as well. Subscribe there. Shout out to our buddy Big Lou. Check him out at Big Lou's Clubhouse. He's been helping us pull some clips for our Acolyte review show that have been going up on YouTube and Reels, bringing in some new eyes and ears to us. Really appreciate that, Big Lou. Podcast available in a lot of spots: Acast, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. Just search, you'll find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. I do want to highlight, on the podcast side, every Sunday we've been re-releasing our old Data Bank Brawl episodes, audio only. If you're kind of new to the show, check it out. It's a fun series we did for a very long time, where we Joseph picks 2 Star Wars characters from the StarWars.com databank, and we make them fight. So that is only available on the podcast side right now. Check that out. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter. Fell off the horse. I fell off the horse. I felt myself riding, and I was going sideways, and then I just fell off the horse. I couldn't stop it.
I understand it. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
Patreon.com/ForceCenter is where you can support us directly. Hey, you can follow me at Ken Napzok. Still tickets available for my big show in Burbank on Sunday, June 30th. Ken Napzok's Hot Burbank Nights at Flappers. Check it out. Also, other dates, including one, Joseph, I'm sure we're going to tell you about here in just a second, that I'm really excited to be part of on August 16th. All that information is on my website. Joseph, tell us about that show and make it smashed.
All right, here we go. Here's your show I got going. So you can check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for links to film stuff and to this big show that Ken is talking about. I'm turning a big number this August. So the night before my birthday, I'm doing a big show called Horror Years Old. It's a comedy variety show. I'll be doing some stand-up and some sketch stuff, and so showing a short film, all sorts of great stuff. Ken is going to be on this show. Hal Lublin's going to be on this show. A lot of great people are going to be on this show. So if you're in the LA area or want to be in the LA area, you can check out the ticket link is live. You can buy those tickets now on my website, josephscrimshaw.com. You can also follow me on all the different social media at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle everywhere. That is it. We have talked about the breaking news, and Ken, I'm gonna try out a new quote to end the show, because it was real popular from our last discussion of the Acolyte. That is it for this episode of Force Center. And as Yoda once said, what go on?
What go on?